Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. I am one of your hosts for today, John Dehlin. It is October 17th, 2023, and we are now covering part 2 of our series on a book that has taken the Mormon Church and Mormon prepper church culture by storm. The book is Visions of Glory. The author of the book is Thom Harrison, Mormon therapist Thom Harrison. And we just spent a good 5.25 hours talking about Thom Harrison, his history, his claims, his connections to all sorts of alleged criminals. I don't know. I think that's accurate. Not that I'm not saying he's trying to be a criminal, but he seems to sprout criminal behavior allegedly. And we did a deep dive into his book, Visions of Glory, which is a book that he published in 2012 with a co-author scribe named John Pontius, who has passed away, under the pseudonym Spencer, where he talks about his 3 near-death experiences. And he talks about the second coming of Jesus, Mormon style, Mormon prepper style, and all the activities and visions and mayhem that's going to lead up to that, including the White Cities, et cetera, et cetera. So that was part 1, and we promised to come back for part 2 because if that weren't enough, we discussed as a setup to last episode the connections to several recent global news stories: John Dehlin, Lori Vallow, several murders associated with them. Tim Ballard, CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, he now has several sexual allegations against him and allegations of fraud. And then, of course, we have Ruby Frankie, the 8 Passengers YouTube channel, and therapist Jodi Hildebrandt. All of those criminals or alleged criminals or people who are in jail have deep connections to Thom Harrison and the book Visions of Glory. And we're going to be talking about that more here in part 2. Joining us, traveling here from all the different places they live. First, we have the Lauren Mathias, the 50% of the Hidden True Crime YouTube channel. Hey, Lauren.
Hello.
You ready to go more? Like, is 5.5 hours not enough?
Ready to go.
You
Let's
want to do another
this.
2 or 3?
Why not?
Anything else you want to add to I know we're doing a joint simulcast to my audience and yours. Anything you want to add as an intro?
No, thank you. Yeah. Hidden a True Crime podcast, YouTube channel or podcast. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful we can do this collaboration. John and I have been talking about this along with the 2 other guests we have here for so long. And I think it's due time. And I'm grateful we're rocking this all out tonight, part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So.
And if you're interested in true crime, especially covering Utah, Idaho, Arizona, honestly, a lot of Mormon themes. Lauren has a career as a reporter, as a journalist. And she's carried that with her forensic psychologist husband, Dr. John.
Yes.
So check them out if you want to check out the latest on Tim Ballard, the Daybell Vallow case, Ruby Frankie. She's got it all and more, right?
Yes,
you cover
and Jodi Hildebrandt. Yeah, we cover crimes from all over. It's just that Mormons keep delivering content these days. So I'm probably going to have to start a channel with John called Mormon Hidden True Crime Stories or something. But yeah, we cover crime. We delve into crime. We've for 4 years we've covered the Lori Vallow, John Dehlin case, and then we've been covering Jodi Hildebrandt, and we've been covering every and Tim Ballard.
All right. Yeah. All right. So also joining us today back on Mormon Stories is the Megan Connor. Hey, Megan.
Hi.
Megan is known. She had her own Mormon Stories episode. Was it 1 or multiple?
I think it was just 1 back in May.
And Megan is Lori Vallow's first cousin, correct?
That's right.
And so she grew up spending summers with Lori's family because it was her family.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's also super smart and informed and wise about all these issues. So we're so grateful you'd come out of state to join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for having us, Megan. And we have my brilliant, wise book club friend, super sleuther. She wields her binders with force and truth.
Yes, I do.
The Mindy Caldwell. Hey, Mindy.
Hi. Glad to be back. I'm glad we're doing this all in one night. This is fun.
Happy anniversary to you and Steve.
Thank you. Happy anniversary, Steve. I love you.
Is Steve going to not forgive me for keeping you here all day during your anniversary?
I think he'll get over it. He'll be fine. We have plans to celebrate other ways. So
yeah.
Thank you.
And Mindy, Megan was responsible for the main structure and of part one. Mindy, you kind of took the lead here for part two.
I did, yes.
So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, we welcome everyone joining us on the live streams, YouTube, Facebook, etc. I want to start by just thanking everyone who donates to Mormon Stories and the Open Stories Foundation. All of this is because of those of you who are monthly donors who go to mormonstories.org, click on the donate button and become monthly donors. We always appreciate super chats here on YouTube. And then Lauren, how do people support you if they want to support you and John?
Yeah, thank you. Patreon.com/hidden true crime. We do episodes there, and we also have a book club. In fact, we have a book club this Wednesday where we do a movie club and a book club, and we do a live Zoom for everyone, and that's through patreon.com/hidden true crime as well. This Wednesday, we're covering Abducted in Plain Sight, about the East Idaho family, that Skye Borgman documentary on Netflix. It's a few years old now, but
that was a good one.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. Another
where
Mormon crime.
The girl gets kidnapped by the same men.
Correct.
Twice.
So we'll be discussing that on live Zoom, and you can join that through Patreon.
All right. So we're in for another round. Mindy, do you want to kind of kick this off and
Sure.
guide us through a little bit?
Sure. So we decided that we would talk about, we feel like we covered the book Visions of Glory adequately in our previous episode.
Thoroughly.
And so we thought that for this episode, we would talk about the more current connections to Thom Harrison as the therapist and local therapist, and the influence that he's had in the community, sometimes connected to the book Visions of Glory and sometimes separate from that. But we feel like it's important to highlight these connections because, as John mentioned in the introduction, many of these connections to Thom have resulted in some criminal and somewhat disturbing behavior, and have gotten a lot of national and global recognition. So that's why we feel connected to this first episode, that it would be important to highlight some of these stories. So some of this will be a little bit of a repeat. We'll try to get through this quickly. But we also want to take the time to touch on things thoroughly, and so you have an understanding of these connections. So I have a hard time saying the word connections now because of Jodi. Every time I find I think I've studied so much.
I know.
I've studied so much of these videos and podcasts, and I'm like, every time I say the word connections, I cringe a little bit. But
I can't say distortion either.
Distortion,
you can't say something's distorted because I'm like, no, that's Jodi Hildebrandt. She ruined that for me.
Exactly.
It's okay, Mindy. You are not enough.
That is, You Are Not Enough is the name of Jodi Hildebrandt's book. It's an interesting title. Okay. And we will get to Jodi Hildebrandt later on. But first, we're just going to recap and touch on Chad and Lori Daybell because are we calling her Lori Daybell or are we calling her Lori Vallow? Lori Vallow-Daybell.
Either works. Lori Vallow-Daybell.
Yeah, either works. And it's hard because the Vallows don't want her to be called Vallow. The Daybells don't want her to be called Daybell, but she's kind of both. And legally in the trial, they called her Vallow because legally her name is Vallow. So
okay. All right. We'll call
whatever
her Lori
you feel.
Vallow. I think we start with them because I think their case is the most tragic of all of them. We're mindful of the victims in this case, of Lori Vallow's children, JJ and Tylee, who were murdered. Chad's wife, Tammy, was murdered. Lori's, I think we refer to him as her ex, but he wasn't her ex at the time. They were still currently married. So her husband, Charles Vallow, was murdered, and possibly there could be other deaths associated. So there was an attempt on Brandon Boudreau's life. He was the niece of Lori. He was Lori Vallow's niece's husband or estranged husband. There was an attempt on his life. So there's just a lot of criminal behavior with this group. So we figured that they would be the starting point. And we did cover a lot of this case in our last episode, but we'll touch on a few things that we didn't cover last time. One thing
you mentioned JJ and Tylee, right?
Yes.
Did I mention them by
Yes.
name?
By
It's
name.
important to mention their
Some
names.
people were saying
yes, of
to say their
course.
names, and so
Yes,
Oh
of
yeah,
course. I think
JJ and Tylee. She did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, just making sure.
Yes. Thank you for the reminder. We can say their names a lot. So one thing we didn't mention is that Lori was a fan of the book Visions of Glory long before she met Chad. And so by the time she and Chad's paths crossed, she was already swimming in these waters of like near-death experiences and times. And so Lori meets Chad at a conference where he is speaking about his visions, and he makes reference to a part of the book in Visions of Glory. And so we have a video clip. Lauren, do you want to talk about this video clip?
Yeah, and I want to say too that this is a Preparing a People conference, and while Preparing a People conference no longer exists because I think Chad gave it a bad name, it's now Latter-day Media. Is still run by the Jameses, Mike and Nancy James. So this Preparing a People conference is one of the many conferences that gave Chad Daybell a platform, and one of the many that many of the people that attend this conference read the book Visions of Glory. And we're going to delve into those conferences and into these people. So I just want to set that stage. It's really important. And so, yes, in this little clip we're about to play, I put this together. I scripted this, but you are going to hear a voice refer to Spencer. And this is Chad Daybell speaking at that conference. And it's actually the day he meets Lori Vallow. The speech Chad gave to Lori Vallow is on our channel, Hidden True Crime. We're the only ones that have that speech. And this is taken from that speech. He actually mentions Spencer and Visions of Glory in that speech.
And there's also a little bit with Anna that you interviewed, where she was part of the prepper community, and she.
Yes, and Anna was a member of A.V.O.W., another voice of warning.
That's right.
And so she brings up Visions of Glory. So A.V.O.W. is the prepper website located in Rexburg. That's also another major player in giving Chad Daybell his platform. And Anna is an ex-member of A.V.O.W. sharing what she's discovered and what she thinks really affected the belief system. And she mentions Visions of Glory.
Should we play it?
Let's play it.
All right, let's roll the clip.
According to multiple sources, including family, Lori also loved the book Visions of Glory by John Pontius. Pontius passed away from cancer shortly after his book's publication and remained a member of the LDS Church at death, but his book too has been controversial. It revolves around a man named Spencer and Spencer's multiple near-death experiences and visions. Pontius interviewed Spencer for his book and declares Spencer's visions as truth.
I believe the 10 tribes have great gifts that we don't understand. In Spencer's book, Visions of Glory, he talks about how they can just mold rock. They can take a tree and tell it to be a chair or something like that, and the tree will obey.
I found the real Spencer during my research. He's a therapist from Salt Lake City, Utah. His real name is Thom Harrison. After asking Harrison many questions, he mailed me a letter he had written to leaders of his LDS congregation in 2014. I read a part of the letter to one of our interviewees named Anna, who also brought up the controversy and prominence of the book Visions of Glory. Here is a snippet from that interview.
I don't know that I'd ever heard of portals before Visions of Glory.
Okay.
And, Mike Stroud started talking about portals. Chad talked about portals. But, I think it's really influenced.
It's really influenced people,
right.
She says,
right,
to say the least.
So what do you guys take from that as being kind of essential takeaways?
The prominence of the book.
Yeah.
I think that this this group. So again, these conferences, it's being talked about. That this is so again, Anna's in a prepper website that does visions and visions and dreams and prepping in Rexburg, Idaho. And then you have the Preparing People conference, and Chad is talking about it. Then she mentions Mike Stroud. He's now an excommunicated member from Arizona. He was a seminary teacher for years, and he's talking about it. Julie Rose talking about it. This book is taking this group of like-minded Mormons by storm. It is well known. Even if you've never heard of this book, I think it's really important to say, because I hadn't heard of this book until the Daybell case, but it's really important that even if you haven't heard about this book is making waves.
Absolutely. I think that the next clips that we want to talk about, before we do that, we did mention in the previous episode about the video from Hawaii where the police approached Lori and Chad poolside. We don't have to show the whole video again, but I do think we have a clip of that. If you can show that, a photo.
And just everyone pay attention to the book that's
Yes.
under Lori Vallow's right knee. This is after all the deaths.
All the deaths.
Of all the children, of the ex-spouses, of the spouses. Check out, while they're in Hawaii at the poolside, what book is under Lori Vallow's knee.
And it's really full circle. Here we have the speech that Chad gave when he's meeting Lori for the first time, mentioning it. And here he is now with his new wife after a murder spree, reading it. This book is clearly not just, this book clearly has played a major role in their belief system.
Yeah, for those who can't see, the Visions of Glory book is right there on the beach lounge chair under Lori Vallow's knee, and Chad's kind of bending over, checking at least the book out.
Yeah, and is this a good time to also state that I do know from 3 separate sources, once again, that Thom Harrison was meeting with Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe, from 3 extremely reliable sources. Now I have that information.
And we don't have a video clip. That's just a still. Is that right, Mindy?
Yeah, we showed the video clip in the first first episode. I don't think we need to show that again.
Okay, cool.
Lauren had the opportunity to interview a gentleman by the name of Braxton Southwick. Megan, do you want to tell us about Braxton?
Well, Braxton is another one of my cousins. Also lived in the California area when we were kids, and we did spend a little time together during the summers. Braxton became an extreme prepper. He appeared on many, many episodes of, I think it was a Discovery Channel documentary about prepping, and went around lots of different places and on different radio shows and everything, talking about his prepping, and really became a part of, this extreme prepper community. He is still, I think, very, very big into that. And he's also not a fan of mine. So,
and to clarify, if you're wondering, yes, because he is Megan Connor's cousin, he is also Lori Vallow's cousin. And he has shared that he gave Lori Visions of Glory, that they have talked about Visions of Glory a lot. So he said that this book was the book that they talked about. And so, yes, I'm very grateful. I interviewed your cousin and Lori Vallow's cousin for 2 hours. And we talked about a lot about Visions of Glory and prepping.
So yeah, I think we can roll the first clip with Braxton. And in this clip, he talks about how he and Lori often discussed the book Visions of Glory.
All right, let's roll it.
Who would you and Lori talk about together when you would talk about your like-minded beliefs when it came to the prepping community? Who did you discuss?
Just the books. Nobody.
And which books? Which books?
The biggest one was Visions of Glory.
Okay.
That was just a great book. We liked talking about that one. We talked a few times.
A few times?
Mm-hmm. Parts in the book and what we thought and what we interpreted when we read it. It was just fun,
Did she take it literally?
I think so. I kind of do too, some of the stuff, take literally, but for me, it's all good and fun. And I think she just took it as scripture. And I think that's what a lot of these people did, was take it as more scripture than anything else.
So, okay, I have so many questions. Thank you for delving into this. So, Visions of Glory, you said you have your book with you, right? Do you have your book?
Vision. I just pulled it out of my
thank you,
my library downstairs.
Yeah, that book became. I've been reading this book. I've read it a few times now. I didn't know about it until this case. That was research. So you and I talked on the phone even, and you said, "Well, did you like it?" I said, "I have to be honest, Braxton. I read it very biased because I was reading it for research of this case, and so no, I have to admit I didn't like it because I'm seeing all these similarities in the book that Lori's seen. I've seen similarities in Thom Harrison, he's Spencer's beliefs, and Lori's. We'll get into that in just a second. This book, though, I've heard from many people she liked it, and then it was definitely confirmed in trial when body cam footage or cell phone footage, I should say, from Kauai police showed Lori reading it by the poolside when she was delivered the order to present her children to the court. And then in addition to that, confiscated it, and it showed it in all of the search of her vehicle that they had taken this religious book. It's really interested me for quite a while. I've talked to numerous people who have told me they felt that this book played a role, to the point where I finally listened to it, and I can't help but see what they're talking about. I feel like this is where portals began. Everyone sort of made fun of Chad and Lori's belief in portals, but it's very clear that portals are all the rage in Visions of Glory, and that many people do take this book
seriously.
Seriously.
What in the fetch was he saying? What did he say? Fun? What did he say?
I think it's fun.
It's all good fun.
I think right after that, I finally said to him, "What do you mean by good and fun?" Right? I was like, let's go back to what good and fun is.
Right.
But yeah,
that book is anything but good and fun.
I don't see it as fun. I see it as a lot of carnage. I see it as violent.
Yeah.
I see a lot of death and destruction in the book. It's quite scary to me.
Yeah.
So Visions of Glory was not the only book that influenced your cousin Braxton and Lori's cousin Braxton, but it does sound like that was the one book that he had the closest connection with Lori, that they would discuss the most. So, John, let's go to the next, skip the next clip, but the following clip. And this is Braxton is discussing these books, and he and Lauren have a great discussion about whether or not he believes in demonic possession. Do you have anything to add to that before we watch it?
No, yeah, we can go ahead. Is the one you're skipping part of that too? Because I think.
Oh, do we need to do that one too?
I think we should do them.
Let's do them both. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
All right, I'll roll it.
Roll the tape.
Visions of Glory is written by a man named John Pontius, but he's essentially like the ghostwriter. He's writing the visions of Spencer. Spencer is an alias, but his real name is Thom Harrison, which I can share because he has come out publicly multiple times. I actually grew up near the Harrison family. And so Thom Harrison wrote this book, Visions of Glory. And he states at the book that these are his visions, that he had dreams and visions of the last days. And it's a near-death experience book gone. Here are the visions of the last days. It's just one of this genre we keep talking about, but it's in great detail. And he discusses portals. He discusses the days of tribulation. He discusses his wife dying suddenly because he has another mission to fulfill. He does share a chapter, and I'm sure you know this, you've read it a few times too, where evil spirits are getting into a man who's looking at porn. They're getting into the top of his head.
Yeah.
And
lots of books, not just these books that we're reading, a lot of books. The same thing.
And seeing to me, he might not have used the word zombie, but to me, that's what a zombie is.
Yeah, maybe that's why they called it a zombie. They are saying the same thing, but spirits enter through the crown of your head. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And when you do evil things, they're going to be able to get in, and they don't want to leave. They want to take over your whole body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
want
to
to
me,
feel-
that's a zombie.
Yeah, they want to feel what humans feel because they're disembodied. They never had a body. And so they, in a moment of weakness, like drugs, alcohol, his example of porn, any of those, they enter through the crown of the head and they get to feel for a moment human body emotions.
Maybe we can just go to the next one. We can just roll right into the next.
We'll just roll into the next. It's kind of the same. It's continued on this thought.
John, you seem like you have something you want to say.
I mean,
John's eyebrows are raised. Like, what is he talking about?
I mean, you listen to just his diction, and he sounds super thoughtful and articulate. Thoughtful and articulate. But then he's talking about the stuff not like it's a problem. It's like, oh yeah, demons entering the crown of your head, and
He's very
when you
matter of
drink
fact.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
matter of fact.
But I mean, he's assimilated this as his belief system,
Correct.
just full on, full stop.
Yes.
And that's why I feel like these clips are important, because I think it shows it's not just, I think it's hard to stereotype people who may have similar beliefs to Braxton. You know, you could be sitting at church with people that maybe are thinking the same thing as him, that you could perceive as, in your words, thoughtful or articulate, and they're still espousing these pretty extreme, or what most of us would consider abnormal beliefs, or extreme. I shouldn't say normal or abnormal, but yeah.
That's true. I do want to say, you know, again, this Braxton interview is 2 hours long. I do recommend it to people if you really want to delve into what he believes and like-minded people believe. But I do ask him, where do you talk about this? And he says, it's
Yes.
a church in the hallway. You know, the people that believe this. And so you're sharing books and you're exchanging books. And so he essentially says we talk about this outside of Sunday school, or it's not talked about in just like the basic church lessons. But yeah, there's a bunch of people that go to church, and we all believe this, and we know who each other are, and we share these things.
And I don't mean to perpetuate the false stereotype that there's an association or correlation between religious belief, spiritual belief, and intelligence. As Jonathan Haidt teaches us in The Righteous Mind, sometimes an advanced intellect allows you to employ confirmation bias and reasoning in a way that actually makes belief more likely and makes belief stronger. So there is not, in my view, a meaningful correlation between intelligence and supernatural beliefs. So sorry for phrasing it the way I did.
That's interesting.
All right. Should we go to the next clip?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
That's what I get from all the books. Now, not just these 6 books. Back in the early 2000s, I was really into near-death experiences. And so I went to the library and looked for every book on near-death experience. I didn't want it to be a religious book. I just wanted people to have it. And so I found like literally 20, 30 books, and I read them all about that. And they all kind of said the same thing about evil spirits roaming amongst the earth and entering people and feeling the emotions and everything. So when he wrote that, I'm like, yeah, I get that from a lot of people. Now, Chad and Lori, if they wanted to call him a zombie, I guess they're calling him a zombie because an evil spirit entered their body. But they took it
Right.
because in Visions of Glory and other books, it was just for the moment, right? The moment of human weakness. When, like, one book, and it's escaping my mind, but it was a World War II pilot that died and had a vision. He died in the hospital and had a guide and walked around, and he went to a bar and watched these evil spirits go through drunk men through the crown of their head and got to feel the emotions of their body for a moment. So when he said that in Visions of Glory, I recognized it. So I like that stuff because I believe that stuff too.
Okay.
A lot of
Okay. And I read it differently. I felt like he was kind of implying that they were trying to stay in the body, that you're right. They entered the crown of the head. They wanted to feel what this
but they couldn't
person
stay
was
forever.
feeling,
Well, I guess
but they wanted to stay and kind of take over his body.
I'm sure they do, and there's examples of that happening in the Bible. A lot of evil spirits taking over bodies.
So let me just ask you point blank. minus the term zombies, which I think we both think is ridiculous, do you believe in an evil spirit being able to take over a good person's body?
If that person is allowing them to, yes.
And
So-
how does one allow them to?
When you're drunk, yeah, that. Or you're playing with a Ouija board and inviting an evil spirit in and letting it take over your body. I believe that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Lori believed it.
Apparently, but they called it a zombie, and I guess the zombie stayed there and they had to do away with the person, like her children.
Is there any thought in your mind then that could have happened actually to JJ and Tylee?
No.
And so, I mean, well, what's the difference? What keeps somebody from believing that? Do you know what I mean? Like believing that, and then other people like realizing, I mean, I agree with you. I'm like, thank you. Like, no. But why would Lori believe that?
I think the short answer to that is because she wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe Chad was right. And she wanted to believe that this is all for a reason and he's correct. I think she wanted to. Now, let me explain something. When you're a prepper like me and you're preparing for one event, the second coming of and you spend hundreds and thousands of dollars preparing and having a plan and getting your family prepared and your friends prepared, and you spend all this time and it consumes you and you do it day after day after day. You are mentally like, I'm prepared. I am ready. There's nothing more I can do. Now I want to be challenged. I want to go through it and do well in it. Mm-hmm. And I think Lori was in that position where she talked about it every day. She knew what was going on. She was prepared. Chad told her the future and what was going to happen. She knew it. She had a key to the future, and it was Chad. And he's telling her, and she's been preparing and talking about it and telling everybody it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And everybody around her is believing her that it's coming because Chad told me it's coming. She wanted it so bad she wanted it that at that point, she's like, Chad says this, and I want it to happen. I want it to happen. So I'm going to go past this envelope, go a little bit more, and kind of help it along. I think that was her. Now, that's my opinion on it. I don't know if she thought that, but that explains to me how she did this horrific act.
I value your opinions, and I understand that you're sharing opinions, and thank you. I guess my next question then is, if she did that and she chose to believe that because of the reasons you suggested, do these beliefs in evil spirits entering bodies become dangerous?
What do you mean they become dangerous? What do you mean by that?
Well, you seem to have a level head, and I say to you, are JJ and Tylee taken over by evil spirits? And you smirk and you go, absolutely not. No, of course not. Lori wanted to believe that. But allegedly, she did want to believe that. And that's what she claims happened, whether we believe her or not. So is that belief then, just to have that belief that an evil spirit can enter a good body, if they choose it by sinning, I think is what you're saying. Is that a dangerous belief to have? Because not everyone is Braxton. Not everyone is healthy like you and can roll your eyes and be like, of course it didn't enter my child's body. I love my child, but can everyone think like, is this not an unhealthy belief that we read in Visions of Glory or these other books?
So much to unpack.
That's a lot.
That was a long clip. I know, but I think it was important. Thanks for pulling that.
Of course.
Super quick. Did he just acknowledge the likelihood that Thom Harrison plagiarized another NDE and imported that bar spirits narrative into Visions of Glory? Did I hear that right?
You did hear that right. You did. And
instead of it being a problem, he described that bug as a feature, saying, well, see, multiple people are receiving the same revelation. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I believe the book, I'm looking down here right now. It's called Return from Tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, that's Betty. Is it Betty Eady?
Return from
Oh,
Tomorrow was a
my-
psychiatrist, allegedly, George Ritchie,
Oh,
published in 1978. And this person wrote me, said, yes, he enters a bar and then the evil spirits go into the crown of the head. So this person states the exact same
wow.
thing.
And I think we did remark last episode that part of the draw for these books for a lot of these people is the confirmation bias and the fact that they do agree on a lot of these things, which makes it attractive because it helps them confirm their own biases. So
Yeah, they love the plagiarizing because it just confirms that it's true, right? If more than one person is having this vision, they don't see it as plagiarizing, they see it as confirmation.
they see it as a second and third and fourth and fifth witness of
Yeah.
the same
Exactly.
things being true.
I think that's why the websites like Avow, where people can go on and share their visions and their dreams and their thoughts. My family member took that as a confirmation. And in my mind, I'm like, well, one person reads something and then you start thinking about it, kind of like the pink elephant story. You start thinking about it, and then maybe you're going to have a dream about it, and then you post about it, and then somebody says, oh my goodness, 2 or 3 or 4 people, just like you said, have posted the same thing. It's, as an outsider, it seems simple what's going on, but I think if you're wanting to feel confirmation for yourself that these are real, I think if you keep maybe seeing different variations but similar themes, I think that would bolster your belief.
It's validation.
Right.
Couple quick comments, if it's okay. Guy
Please.
McDude writes, I've been drunk while playing with the Ouija board. Where is my evil spirit?
Well,
It's like the crown of my head is open. Come on in.
I love
who's to say you don't have an evil spirit in you? I think that
That's right.
according to Chad, Lori, and who knows, maybe Braxton, I don't know, you are evil right now. You are a 5.4 dark.
Rebecca B. I don't know if this is Rebecca Biblioteca, but she writes, I use Ouija boards for placemats.
That makes mealtime fun.
Daisy May, I agree with this. She says Lauren is such a good interviewer.
Yes, you
Mhm.
are.
Lauren is
100%.
a good interviewer. Amen to that.
I can attest.
I think so many of her, this isn't a one-off, this interview with Braxton, like she has had the opportunity to interview many, many people in this group or these types of groups. And I've always been impressed, Lauren, that you're able to be so professional and validating, yet you ask good questions. And I think that you allow people to open up and feel safe. And I think that's really important. I think it was evident in this interview with Braxton.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lots of people saying, please like this episode. Please subscribe to these channels because it helps with the algorithms. It basically helps YouTube promote it. So thank you for reminding us. Really quickly, somebody writes, he's kind of emotionless about the kids. I don't like to pick on people. It's just somebody's comment.
He is.
Any
He was throughout the whole interview. So I can concur. I felt that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other reactions about? Oh, I guess he's family. Megan's over there being quiet.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I don't like to put family against family, so I'm not trying to do that.
And it's not. Look, I don't harbor ill will towards my family members, but I think it is important to point out. I think it's part of the family culture to minimize tragedy and to minimize difficult things. And that's part of the reason why we don't talk about things and we don't really hold people accountable in good, healthy ways. And so, yeah, it's part of the family culture, unfortunately.
And it's fair you asked her because I asked Braxton what he thought of Megan on his interview. So now we've come full circle.
That's right.
It was a turn.
Yeah.
Really quickly, we've got a running theme here. Debbie writes, I need to make that placemat theme my Thanksgiving table. Thanks for that. And then I don't know if there's an answer to this, but Kelly Contrell asks if Lori was excommunicated.
I've always just assumed she had been. I can't imagine her not being excommunicated, but that is a rumor. And I think it's because we received confirmation with Chad's
Yes.
excommunication because the stake president's letter was leaked and posted, and that hasn't happened with Lori Vallow. Thus, there's this mystery. I don't know if you know anything, Megan. I've just always assumed she has been because I can't imagine
Yeah.
not being excommunicated at this point.
Yeah, it would be a stretch. Although I suppose it's possible that mental health concerns might be at play there somewhere. I don't know if bishops and stake presidents take that into consideration, but I do know that her bishop was visiting her while she was in Rexburg, but prior to the trial. I don't know if that's still going on right now or not. So
Yeah.
I
mean, she's the only one that's been convicted now at this point. She has been convicted of murdering J.J. Tiley and conspiring to kill Tammy Daybell, 3 consecutive life sentences. I just, maybe she slipped through the cracks, but I have a hard time believing with the amount of attention that trial brought that
the
she wouldn't
scrutiny.
be.
Yeah.
So
I'd be
I
surprised
assume
as
she
well.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd also be surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that it hasn't been publicized in any way.
I know,
either,
right? Where are
you
the
know?
leaks? I know.
Yeah.
I know. Someone send that. hiddentruecrime@gmail.com.
And again, it's not like the Mormon Church can't and hasn't advertised disciplinary councils or excommunications. It has Sam Young, me. It's talked about the Bundys. It's talked about lots of people. So the church absolutely could just dispel all doubt. And I hear that it's because they want to respect the confidentiality of the people involved. But when these people have followings, and again, they did it with Tim Ballard. So like, which is it? You're respecting the confidentiality and the privacy, or when somebody presents a public threat, you're going to mention them. So I wish we didn't have to guess, is what I'm saying.
You would think that with as much publicity as this trial got, that the church would want to publicize that they've excommunicated her, that this is not a part of our religion.
Yeah.
I think, though, that they're going with the trend of not mentioning her. They've wanted to be completely mute about her.
They don't want to bring PR.
They don't want to bring
Mhm.
PR. With Tim Ballard, they had a relationship. They promoted him. They had no choice but to say, the PR aspect. With Chad and Lori Daybell, and I am upset about this. I've been very public about how upset I am about this, but they have never commented, never mentioned it. I've always said we have nothing to do with this case. I have my opinions about that, but I think that's probably why they're never going to announce her excommunication, because they've completely wiped their hands of this.
Okay. All right. Any other comments about Braxton, or should we move on, Mindy?
Let's move on.
Okay, let's do it.
So there was a lot of speculation during the Lori and Chad trial, or Lori's only been on trial, but during the case, as to whether or not, do they really believe this? Do they believe it? Or is it just a ruse to get rid of their children and spouses and collect insurance money and go off? And so, and I think that's something that we have all talked about. I've landed on where that I do believe that they truly believed that the things that they were saying. I think that Chad and Lori both believed it. And a confirmation of that for me was when Lori, after she received her convictions, she had her sentencing hearing. And it had been years since we had heard anything from Lori from her mouth, like during the entire trial, other than maybe one-word answers. She never spoke. And so it was, we didn't know what she was thinking, or if she had regrets about what had happened to Tylee and JJ and Charles and Tammy. And so I think we were all kind of on the edge of our seats when she chose to speak at her sentencing. And we decided to play this whole clip. Many of the viewers might have seen this already, but I think it illustrates where Lori's mindset is still.
And, I want to say I'm looking forward to hearing this again, because after everything we've talked about, I'm going to be listening with new ears. So even if people have heard this, I think this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll the clip.
I would like to start by quoting John from the New Testament in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus says, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." Then in verse 15, Jesus says, "Ye judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true." Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen. I have a different perspective in life because in 2002, when I was pregnant with Tylee, I died in the hospital while in labor with her. They tried to stop my labor. They put me on the table and they put something in my IV, and I felt my spirit falling to the floor. I was standing near my pregnant body, watching the doctors try to revive me, which took them a few minutes. In that time, my sister Stacy was standing to my left. I turned to hug her and was surprised that her spirit was as tangible as a physical body, because I knew I was in spirit and she was in spirit. She said she needed to show me some things, and we went to heaven. I later returned to my body. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I have had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones, and I have lost many in this mortal world. However, I know them more than most people. I know where they are now and what they're doing. I know how wonderful heaven is, and I'm homesick for it every single day. I know we all lived in heaven before we were born on earth, and we were all adult spirits in the heavenly realm. We chose to come to earth as mortals. Heaven is more wonderful than you can possibly imagine. I do not fear death, but I look forward to it. I did not want to return to my body when I was out of it. Even though my son Colby, who I adored more than anything, was only 6 years old at the time, and I was about to give birth to this new baby girl that I wanted so badly. I was a young mother, and you would think I wouldn't want to leave my children, but as I stood in heaven, I did not want to go back. I thought they would be fine without me because I was peaceful and I was happy and I was home. But then I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home, and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body. Tylee has visited me. She is happy and very busy. Tylee is free now from all the pains of her life. Tylee suffered horrible physical pain her whole life. I sat with Tylee in the hospital year after year after year while she screamed in pain when the morphine wasn't even enough to take away the pain of her pancreatitis. I sat there while she cried and I held back her hair while she threw up. And I am the only person on this earth who knows how much Tylee suffered in her life. She had pain every single day. She never felt good. Her body did not work right. And I don't know if that was from complications from me dying while she was being born or something else, but she had a very difficult life. She was sexually abused by her own biological father since she was 3 years old, and she was forced by family court to go visit him for 10 years against her will. I fought for her in court. I protected her. I tried to protect her with my whole life. I tried to protect her. I worried about her every single day. Tylee had to get her GED because she couldn't go to school every day because she never felt good. She felt sick. Nobody knows this because Tylee, like myself, tries to put on a good front, tries to be a happy person, tries to have hope in life, tries to know that she's here for a purpose and that she has an eternal purpose to be on this earth. But I never stopped worrying about her. One of the times that Tylee came to me as a spirit after she died, she commanded me, and she said to me, "Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine." She knows how I worry and how I miss her. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I love you. And I know you loved me every minute of my life." JJ, Joshua Jackson, was an adult spirit. And he was very, very tall when he put his arm around me. He is busy. He is engaged. He has jobs that he does there. And he is happy where he is. His life was short, but JJ's life was meaningful. JJ was a wonderful person and touched the lives of everyone. And I adored him every minute of his life. My eternal friend, Tammy Daybell, has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort, and I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren. And I have a great love for Tammy. My beautiful children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, rest safely this day in the arms of Jesus. My wonderful friend, Tammy Daybell, rests safely this day in the arms of Jesus. And I look forward to the day when we are all reunited and I too will rest with them in the arms of my Jesus.
Wow.
A
There's
lot
so
to
much
unpack.
there. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously, well, let me start. Megan, do you want to start?
I'm remembering all of the feelings that came up for me the first time that I heard this statement from Lori, and there's a lot to unpack. I just have to say, like, overwhelmingly, the first emotion that overrides everything else is just anger. You know, there's so much there, but this was definitely a moment for me where I don't recognize that person. I don't know who that is. You know, that's not my cousin. That's not Lori. It's sad and it's tragic. And I hate that she refers to Tylee and JJ in the present tense. I hate that she refers to Tammy as her friend. I hate that she, dares us to cast a stone at her when, none of us that I know of are murderers. It's just, unbelievable to me, but I did really appreciate Judge Boyce's comments after this, where he said that she went down a religious rabbit hole and she's obviously still there. And I think that's the best way to encapsulate that entire statement.
People are going to be really busy in heaven. We learned that. Everyone's busy.
Yeah, we learned what they're up to.
Everyone's busy. I do think that's a
busy.
Mormon thing.
Mhm.
Everyone's
Mhm.
busy. I mean, everyone has a purpose is what I think that means. Everyone still matters. Everything continues on. I want to point out, it's a very difficult listen. I do want to point out, I think one of the most shocking things when I was listening to it. And oddly, I went to Rexburg for it, and then I ended up watching it from my hotel room because people were camping out the night before and everyone wanted to see it. And I realized I'd have a better seat in the hotel room. So I remember watching it, and my jaw dropped. I remember when she kept referring to her dear friend, Tammy Daybell. If you realize that she was the mistress in this relationship, she was having an affair with Chad while he was married to Tammy, and then Tammy was murdered because Chad wanted to be with his mistress. It's just sort of this jaw-dropping moment. But then I think this is really important to point out. She refers to her as an eternal friend at one point. And I do think there was this idea of spiritual polygamy. And I want to bring that up because that hits on the Daybell case, hits on the Tim Ballard, what the Tim Ballard victims are saying. I think that might be a hint into her thinking that she's like almost like a sister wife with Tammy Daybell, referring to her as an eternal friend. It's bizarre. And yeah, I can't even listen to her talk about loving her children. That makes me just want to. But I think the one thing we can learn is, and I think it's what we've all kind of known, we knew throughout the trial, like she believes this still. She believes this. This is what her defense kept hinting at. She still believes this. And so if there was any doubt, here you go.
One thing that was surprising to me that I don't believe we'd ever heard before was that she died when she was giving birth to Tylee. So now she's claiming her own near-death experience where she was given some medicine in her IV and she left her body. And I just found that interesting and convenient that she was able to tell that story at this point, to claim that she, maybe this is her equivalent to like a ripped veil, so that's what's allowing her to visit with the spirit version of Tylee and JJ. And she mentioned others, and Tammy. When I watched that the first time, like my heart pounded watching it just now, and I've watched that several times because I think it brought back the emotions, like flames going out of my head, just in anger, especially about Tammy. Just that she was, as Lauren said, I'm so sorry. I've called you Lori twice.
We're talking about Lori.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Lauren Mathias said, said that, Lori Vallow is the mistress and was involved in this plot to eliminate Tammy for the convenience of their, adulterous affair. And I just thought that was incredibly insensitive. And I just, my heart just went to all of the victims and their families, but particularly Tammy's family. That day, I just felt tender for her to have the audacity to call Tammy her dear eternal friend. That was just gross, and that was offensive to me.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up the near-death experience, because you're right. That was the point of that statement, and then it was at the beginning, and then it kept continued.
Right.
What that matters so much, because that's what we're discussing, is this group of like-minded preppers. Those that have the most power have the near-death experiences, and the near-death experiences do something to them that not only do they have a vision during their near-death experience, they come back with sort of this ripped, torn veil, or they can see things that others cannot see. They become more prophetic at that moment. And so it just seems like the moment someone claims that near-death experience, that's when they become, a more prophetic voice in this community that we're seeing of these near-death experience, visionary, second coming preppers.
I think John mentioned earlier, it's like a big power grab, right? Is that how you described it?
Mm-hmm.
Just as an automatic way to gain power and to have people listen to you. And trust your opinion.
Yeah. And where does that idea come from? Visions of glory. He just talks about, as soon as you have that NDE, you start to have visions. You start to be able to have extrasensory powers. Maybe your body transforms into something immortal over time. You can walk through portals. You can pick up a toothbrush and see the universe expanded across time and memorial. And I'm glad you guys shared all the beautiful things and the heartbreak you all shared about how sad and outrageous this testimony was. I do want to just drive it a little bit more home. how much of this comes from Thom Harrison. You know, Megan, you just said that wasn't your cousin, right? We've tried to cover on Mormon Stories podcast, you know, the impact of high demand religions or cults. We brought on Stephen Hassan, and this isn't me calling the LDS Church a cult. Certainly, you're probably okay with me calling this sort of prepper theology cultish. If you're an Orthodox Mormon, hopefully you're okay with that. But what we learn about cults is that one of the things cults do is they indoctrinate you into assuming the cult personality. It's an identity change. It's a personality change. And so what changed Lori's personality? Now, I'm not saying she was without responsibility. I'm not saying she wasn't an adult. I'm not trying to take away that, but she's clearly under the trance or the spell of a series of teachings. And so I wrote down a bunch of the things I heard, and I just want, if y'all don't mind, will you audibly confirm whether these are principles taught in Visions of Glory? Is that okay?
Yes.
Sure.
So this idea of Jesus knowing and understanding us,
Yes.
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Okay, Jesus knowing the truth of what happened. It's almost like she's saying, we had to do something that y'all wouldn't understand with the kids,
Correct.
but Jesus understands it.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. How about this idea of near-death experiences? You've already talked about that.
Yes.
Obviously, that's central. How about being in spirit with her sister and the handshakes or the hugs or whatever? Just that whole idea of spiritual communion, spirit to spirit.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah?
Visions
about-
of Glory.
How about being able to communicate with children, sisters, Jesus, heavenly parents, dead people?
Ancestors.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah. That's very Visions of Glory.
Okay. Angelic visitors.
Very
Yes.
Visions of Glory.
100%.
Okay. How about knowing that Tammy is happy and busy and that JJ and Tylee are happy and busy and satisfied?
Visions of
Yep.
Glory.
Yeah. The idea that JJ was an adult spirit, you know.
That's Visions of Glory. And that
Yeah.
is so Visions of Glory. Let me just say that every single person that once they become a translated being, they hit about age 30, according to Thom Harrison's vision. So some people become younger, children grow up, and you hit that age. And so JJ being tall is being a translated, resurrected being. That
And
is so Visions of Glory.
And I was taught that growing up. That's
Yeah.
Mormon doctrine and
Mhm.
theology. You know, pretty much a lot of this is.
Yeah.
It's more fundamentalist. And that's why we call it neo-fundamentalist, because they're trying to bring back the doctrine that the church has tried to distance itself from. How about this idea that death is not a bad thing? Death is great. Death is.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. Is
Well-
that in Visions of Glory?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and let's go a little bit further than just death is great. Death is sometimes mandatory when you can't deliver people from an evil spirit,
Mhm.
and you can act as God and take their life from them.
Yeah.
That is Visions of Glory, and
Yep.
that is what happened here.
And we
that's
played
what
that
she's saying.
clip
Yes.
last episode.
In the
right?
last
Mhm.
episode, we played that very damning, shocking clip, and that is what Lori did to her children. Now she's saying, this happened because they needed to move on,
Yeah.
and they're happy. They
There's
delivered 'em.
definitely a sense that like we did them a favor. You know,
Yes,
that
we
they
did a favor.
that it was merciful.
Correct.
That we
Braxton implies that too in his
Right.
interview with me. He states that he thinks that Lori. He said to me, "Would you want your kids to live through the second coming? It's going to be terrible." I said, "Well, no." He goes, "Well, neither did Lori." So, yeah. She delivered them. She helped them.
Yeah. I'll just summarize. It's almost as if Thom Harrison wrote that talk for her.
Yes.
I mean, in my mind, it's his theology.
It is.
It's a summary of almost everything that was in Visions of Glory.
Yeah. So that's what's happened to your cousin. That's what's happened to her personality. She's been taken over by a mind virus,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
right?
Yeah, and I do want to definitely make sure that we say at no point ever in the history of Lori Noreen Cox did she ever say she had a near-death experience. Summer confirmed that. Adam confirmed that. Her living siblings both said that never happened. And I can guarantee you that if that had happened, she would have shouted it from the rooftops. That would have been a theme of discussion in our family forever till the end of time, if that had actually happened. And I mean, you're laughing, but I'm not kidding.
I'm laughing because I believe you.
100%. And then what probably would have happened after that is that Barry probably would have co-opted it and made it his own, and then talked like it was his, because he was the spiritual giant, so
Pontificated on it.
Yeah. So it just, it's important to say that she never talked about that before, even when she was reading the book, and even when she was telling, her brother Adam that she was a translated being and she didn't need to eat anymore. And even after she met Chad, and she had never said anything about a near-death experience before.
Yeah. And just, I think beliefs have consequences.
They do.
100%.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
We're looking at it in that video, that clip.
Yeah. I also just briefly want to say too, that it's very telling where her psyche and her emotions are, that almost the last thing that she talks about is being absolved of guilt by the very people who she harmed. JJ told her she didn't do anything wrong.
Don't worry about me, Mom.
Tylee said, don't worry about me. Tammy gave her approval. It was, Lori has to believe that she was not complicit, that she didn't have any responsibility in this, because how do you wrap your mind around that otherwise?
Well, according to Visions of Glory, she doesn't have any responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So if she's following that theology, she's good as gold.
Yeah. All right, Mindy.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I want to move on to Eternal Core. Do you have anything else to say about Chad and Lori?
I think we covered it well.
I think we made the case.
I think we made the case. All right. Okay, moving on. The next point we want to talk about is Eternal Core. And Eternal Core, the logo is here on your screen. Eternal Core, exploring God-centric mental health. And this was founded by Thom Harrison. I believe it was also co-founded by his friend Ken Krogh, and we can talk about Ken in a minute. They would do podcasts together. They put on at least one conference, I think maybe two. And then you can find their videos on YouTube under Eternal Core. And at this point, I want to give a shout out to two Redditors that I drew heavily from for this part of the podcast, Chino Blanco on Reddit and Devil's Ravioli. Thank you for your great work in compiling some of this information. It was very helpful.
Those were impressive.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots.
Yes. Okay. So let's look at the photo of the group photo, John, from Eternal Core. We talked about a few of these before. So we have Thom Harrison in the center. And then to the left, we have Tim Ballard. And then to the far right on the center, we have Jodi Hildebrandt. And there are some other notables in this photo. On the top row, there's Alema Harrington. He's a local sports caster, news person. I believe on the top, on the end with the blonde hair, top left, is Jessica Mass from Operation Underground Railroad. And then down below, on the bottom far left, is Kenneth Cope, and some people might know him as a pretty popular LDS singer and songwriter. I'm not sure if he spoke, but I think he did some musical numbers at the concert, at the conference. And then just below Thom Harrison on the slight left, his name is Tyler Schwab, and he's also an employee of O.U.R, of Operation Underground Railroad, and he works in their aftercare. And then there's other people, but those are just the connections that I was able to make. Oh, just to the right of Thom Harrison is a gentleman named Clay Olson, and he is behind the Fight the New Drug campaign, which has been very popular in Utah, which is talking about teaching teens about pornography usage. So if there's anyone in the comments.
Somebody messaged me and told me that the founder of Lifestar is also amongst these photos.
Oh,
and
really?
I'm searching for it, but I think they may have withdrawn their message, maybe out of fear, or maybe I just can't find it. But
do you want to tell everyone what Lifestar is? Yeah,
Lifestar is just this network of sort of approved, faithful Orthodox LDS therapists that bishops would refer their members to, and in many instances pay for that therapy. So as I understand it, Jodi Hildebrandt, for example, sort of owned a Lifestar franchise along the Wasatch Front. And that's
Correct.
how so many Mormon bishops would channel clients to Jodi and pay for the therapy that was received. So, and Lifestar's focus was on, quote, sex addiction, and it was basically treating normative masturbation and problematic pornography viewing. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
That's
Okay.
right. Do you want to play the video clip that shows Thom Harrison talking about some of his methods of
And this is at
Mormon therapy?
This is at that conference.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Eternal
At
Core
the
Conference.
one of the Eternal Core conferences.
Okay. All right. This is therapist Thom Harrison now.
Numerous times in my 41 years of practice, I had a patient come through the door and I had a plan already of what I was going to do, and that voice said, "Stop. Don't do that. Do this." And that glorious ancestor, or that glorious grandmother, or that glorious individual who loves that person enough to make their way to my office said, "Stop it, Thom, that's not what they need. Do this instead." And when I did it, miracles happened.
And I saw that clip on Reddit, and as someone with a PhD in psychology, I've been trained, was trained for 6 years, super duper unethical. Like any licensing board worth its salt would suspend his license for admitting that he basically performs religious, psychic-based, informed psychotherapeutic interventions where he basically, in his imagination, channels the dead loved ones of his clients and lets them dictate what the psychotherapeutic treatment should be. Super unethical and outrageous.
Yeah.
Channeling ancestors, big part of his book, big part of Lori's sentencing speech too. We heard, just full circle, there's the channeling ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah. But to know this guy's leading Mormon therapy conferences, that as he claims, he consulted Mormon Church general authorities for decades, supposedly as an expert on child abuse. So deeply disturbing that the church used this guy as a consultant.
Again, deciding what missionary shouldn't be serving.
Now,
He's right
currently.
now at this moment. So is he deciding this through their ancestors, or is he deciding this through case studies and science?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think many of us that have been thinking about this case and about Thom currently, separate from the book, but currently just in his current therapeutic practice, I think we've wondered what kind of a therapist has he been? Do we have stories out there about, what kind of, if he's done things like this that we just saw in the video, where is he telling his patients that he's channeling their dead ancestors to help them? Is he acting professionally? And then we have something that Lauren would like to share, that somebody that counseled with Thom reached out to Lauren.
Yes, I've now talked to a few patients of Thom Harrison. I think that this woman's experiences, she's told me that as long as I keep her anonymous at this moment, she is considering coming forward later with her name. But she's told me I can share a few things. I'm not even going to share all of the things she's allowed me to share. I'm going to share some things that I find really important. So this is a patient of Thom Harrison for years. She started seeing Thom Harrison. And I want to say that I have vetted this individual. I know who they are. They're vetted.
In other words, you find them to be credible.
I find them to be very credible. This is a very credible source. And yes.
And I'm just going to say, for legal reasons, that these are allegations. We're not saying that they're true, but we're sharing them with every good reason to believe they could be.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is I wouldn't just share any source as a credible source. This is a person that was a patient of Thom Harrison's for years. I have seen text exchange between them, if that means anything to anyone too. So these are the points that I want to share today that she's allowing me to share. She started seeing him as a young adult. Thom referred to me and others, including someone close to me, as having light and dark energy, or being light and dark spirits. That is, I just need to repeat, that is Chad Daybell's rating scale. And we'll get into Tim Ballard there, but I've also heard that Thom Harrison would help O.U.R. know who was light and who was dark in the organization as a whole. So that goes with what else I'm hearing too. So Thom referred to me and others, including someone close to me, as having light or dark energy, or being light and dark spirits. He violated many boundaries in therapy, including those I told you about, specifically taking me to a temple as a young adult, and considered me. He told me there in the temple that I was one of his eternal wives. Truthfully, so much of it was about spiritual connection and eternal marriage. And he frequently spoke of alternative, mostly not included in mainstream LDS doctrine practices, beliefs, and ideas about the pre-existence, eternal polygamy, relationships with people in other states of existence, etc. So that's not all she told me I could share, but I think that's what matters right now, is we're seeing a pattern in these beliefs that are being shared and taught, and even now entering into therapy with his patients.
One really quick, I found the text that I was referring to previously. I'm going to jump back to that to the Eternal Core conference slide. And this is what a source writes. I'm pretty sure the second man from the left on the top row is one of the founders of LifeStar. Dan Gray is the name that this person is providing. This person says, I worked for LifeStar in Rexburg for a while. Nuts. Thankfully, I came to my senses. Thank you for your amazing work. So that's another name.
Okay.
Dan Gray.
Okay.
Allegedly. We don't know if that's true, but Mindy, where do we go next?
Yeah, I think to follow up on some of Thom's patients and their experience that they've had with him. Thank you, Lauren, for sharing that from your source. I did want to talk about Ken Krogh. He is a friend of Thom, and he helped to found the Eternal Core Exploring God-Centric Mental Health brand. So a little bit of background on Ken. He is a wealthy businessman who unfortunately was in a terrible automobile accident, and he says that after his automobile accident, he really began to change his behavior, where he was just saying inappropriate things and feeling tempted by pornography and some other things, which he said that was new for him. That wasn't something that he had dealt with before, and he was very distressed about it. He claims to have heard Thom Harrison's voice at some point. I don't recall if he said it was in a dream or a vision or something, but he remembers hearing Thom's voice. And he was talking to his friend, Rod Meldrum, who you have interviewed on this podcast.
Stories, yeah.
And Rod is behind the Book of Mormon evidence.
And the Firm Expo that I attended. We'll get to that later. But yeah, he's important, Rod Meldrum.
Lauren will talk about that later. So Rod tells Ken, you need to talk to my friend Thom. And so this next clip is where Ken talks about how he was introduced to Thom and how Thom helped him with this problem.
All right, let's roll the clip.
I had been in the middle of this conflict between different groups of Latter-day Saints, debating over things like, where did the Book of Mormon happen? And why is this? Why is that? And I had been in the middle of it thinking, okay, I'm supposed to help 54,000 young people learn how to use social media. And if they get in the middle of these discussions, it's going to be worse than if we didn't even bring it up. I went back into my journal of a few weeks before the accident, and I had written down, I don't know what to do. I can't figure out who's right. Heavenly Father, bless me with an open mind. Be really careful what you ask for. I was meeting with Thom. I said, Thom, why do I, and before I could say, he said, Ken, why do I feel like I know you? I said, Thom, why do I know your voice? Thom's got a pretty distinctive voice. He said, I don't know, but let's talk about it next week. And I said, and why am I having these crazy urges and temptations and appetites? I can't even slow them down. He says, well, let's talk next week. By the way, Thom excuses himself and goes to the restroom quite often. What I've learned is he's really going to turn to Father and ask, how do I help this person? Linda, you've got an amazing husband. So I came back and he said, Ken, I need to ask you, what's your calling in the LDS church? I'm like, why are you asking me that? What does that have to do with anything? No, just humor me. I said, well, 2.5 weeks before this accident, I was asked to be the head of social media ministering for the young single adults in Utah County, 30 stakes, 54,000 of them. And he said, what's their greatest challenge? I said, without question, it's pornography. I said, oh. He said, Ken, you can't help what you don't know. And within a month, it was gone. It was utterly, completely, totally gone. And Thom was like my personal Obi-Wan, but it wasn't him. And he says it. He says he turned me to the force. He turned me upstairs to the Lord. And ever since then, I'm really careful about asking for an open mind or anything else.
So I think he's implying that he asked for an open mind. He has this new calling as the director of social media, ministering over 54,000 young single adults. And then after his accident, he develops this unusual urge to view pornography. And then Thom counsels him that you can't teach what you don't know. So to me, that was implying that God gave him the urge to look at pornography. Am I reaching here? Is that kind of what what everyone else got from that? It was a very roundabout way to kind of to get to that point, but I think that's what he was implying, that he asked for an open mind, he had this urge, and then he claims that Thom helped him through that and that he didn't have that temptation anymore.
I'm mainly offended by the abuse of the Star Wars clip. I mean, that's clearly out of bounds for someone like that to be referencing the Star Wars canon.
I thought the Obi-Wan was interesting because I think, isn't that that's a mentor, right? That's
like a guru?
Yeah, a guru.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of what I think we're concerned about, that he is sort of a self-proclaimed guru on so many things.
He's a born whisperer.
You say the porn whisperer. Oh goodness.
I mean, I'm just befuddled by how the Mormon Church decides who should be leaders in the community. right?
Yeah.
Like somebody sarcastically wrote, this is James Morgan. He writes, he seems like a logical candidate to supervise young people on social media, LOL. But kind of more seriously, my friend Allison, hey Allison, she writes, it's like going to your abuser for treatment of your abuse. Trauma on religious trauma that is perpetually having fuel thrown on it. I have no idea if what I just said made sense, but it makes sense in my head. Like the church creates the problem and then it presents itself as the solution to the problem it's creating. And then it's putting forward completely inappropriate, unethical people as the leaders to resolve the problem. And they're part of making the problem worse and worse. I don't know.
We call this the poison and the cure.
Yeah.
I think some people might take offense to calling the church poison, but I feel like it's fair in this situation or that's like they give you the illness and then the treatment for the illness, but it's just this never-ending cycle, right?
What's hard is that the whole reason Natasha Helfer started the Mormon Mental Health Association is because there are faithful, active, competent Mormon mental health professionals that abide by their ethics.
Correct.
And use science, evidence-based practice to do treatment. So these people exist as active, faithful, believing Mormons. But for some reason, the church doesn't want them being the ones that lead these initiatives or are the mentors. Why are they picking these sketchy people?
We're deciding again what missionaries are okay to go on mission mental health wise.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And can we talk about him excusing himself during therapy sessions several times to use the bathroom and then he claims that he's praying, or like the previous clip that you showed that he was calling on like ancestors. That seems abnormal for your therapist to excuse himself.
I don't even know what to say. I have no comment to that. Because it's like, I don't even know what to say. That was very odd.
So bizarre.
And then just really quickly, I'll just say roaming around, Googled Don Gray Lifestar images, and that same photo came up. So it is Don Gray. Is it Dan or Don?
I think it's Dan.
Dan Gray.
Dan Gray. Oh, on the image before.
On that image. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mindy.
All right. So the Eternal Core Conference, we're kind of carrying on with the people that we saw, a few of the people that we saw in that photo. And so next we're going to talk about Jodi Hildebrandt. And Jodi has been covered heavily over the last, how long has it been? Month and a half since the story broke with Ruby Franke, 8 passengers. Jodi Hildebrandt is a Mormon therapist who John has interviewed. Jessie Hildebrandt, who is Jodi's niece, and also Adam Steed had an extensive interview where he was a patient of Jodi's and had a lot of damage from her therapies.
And I want to say this, your interview with Adam Steed was taken down, but ours is up. So
that's a
they
good
didn't
point.
send you as
ours is up. So you can see Adam Steed on Hidden True. Well, not see him, but hear him in Hidden True Crime. We have 2 parts there. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I'm glad you mentioned that, so people can go to Hidden True Crime and see your interview with Adam Steed. That's important. Jodi is also behind some of these porn addiction programs that we've been talking about, but she has been arrested because 2 of Ruby and Kevin Franke's minor children were found at Jodi Hildebrandt's home in Ivins, Utah, and had been abused and malnourished and mistreated, and they escaped Jodi Hildebrandt's home and ran to a neighbor. And subsequently, Jodi and Ruby were both arrested and are still currently in jail, right? Do we have any updates on what's going on with their legal? I
believe there was a hearing today, but I've been here today. But as of last night, there was some interesting news. But let me just say, as far as Jodi, the children were in her care. They were tied up. They were bound with duct tape. They were tied. They had lacerations and wounds that were so deep that, it brought tears to the people looking at these children. They were so skinny. They could tell they'd been starved. This is No joke, child abuse. What's also heartbreaking is Jesse came on Mormon Stories to pretty much share she went through the exact same thing. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Jesse came on to share that. They went through the exact same thing. And so she is behind bars, and this is just horrendous abuse. It just made national, international news. Thank you for your coverage, John, with what Mormon Stories has done with this horrendous story. But yes, so Jodi Hildebrandt.
And Jodi presented at the Eternal Core Conference in 2019. The topic of her main address was called How to Choose Personal Responsibility to Heal the Human Soul. That was her. She bluntly tells her clients, she admits in her presentation that she bluntly tells her clients that they are responsible for their depression. She claims to be able to discern if people are connected or disconnected, or in truth or distortion, is how she describes it, just by looking at them. So that's a theme that we've heard all day long. How many times do we hear Thom Harrison say in his book, I just knew everything about the person just by, immediately looking at them.
By picking up their hairbrush.
Yeah, it's just this theme. Okay, so let's look at the next. Oh, just not a surprise if you followed any of the Jodi Hildebrandt coverage, but she talks about these concepts that she's developed called distortion and truth and connection. Oh, her brand is called Connections with an X, CONNEXIONS. And she talks about these concepts just constantly. It just seems like she's constantly bringing those up. And she claims that distortion is the root cause of anxiety and depression, which I think is harmful when you're dealing with mental health treatment.
Extremely harmful.
Okay, so this next video clip is from a panel that Thom Harrison and Jodi Hildebrandt are on together during the Eternal Core Conference of 2019.
This normal that we all experience involves hard. So, many of us have had experiences just today that have been hard and uncomfortable, and that's what's normal. And what we have to remember is that that's a part of this life experience. It's what creates your character. It's what creates the stretching and the growing and the developing, is if you'll stay in hard. And this is where we need each other. This is where we need connection. You're my new friend, Thom, and I want to be able to call Thom when I'm in hard and say, Thom, I'm in hard. And Thom, because he knows how to validate, Tom's going to say, Jodi, tell me about it. And I'm going to tell him what the hard is. And then he's going to say, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Or I understand, or I was there yesterday, or you can do it. He's going to validate me. And inside that validation, I feel the connection. And so then all of a sudden, my hard becomes less hard. It doesn't mean that it goes away. And I don't need to stay in this place of, oh, I'm anxious or I'm depressed. That's like a state of being. It's like a death sentence to stay in those two states. Instead, I call and I get some validation. And then Thom says to me, hey, Jodi, you ready? You ready to hear your part in what's hard about this? And then because he loves me, he says, here's your part. You're responsible for. You're in distortion. You're saying to yourself, I can't do this. This is impossible. This shouldn't have happened. How dare they? He points that out to me. And then I can use my agency and say, okay, I choose to go into truth. And I'll tell you, it is instant that you come back into this very powerful connection. And I thank him, thank you for telling me the truth, Thom. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're working towards. Normal is hard. Hard is normal.
And that's what Eternal Core is. Eternal Core is moving the whole field of psychology and psychiatry and social work and mental health, marriage and family counseling out of this distortion of we are all in competition with each other. And my way's better than your way. If we cannot come together, how do we expect our clients to come together? If we can't be united, how do we expect them to learn how to be united? If we are not living in truth, how can we expect them to live in truth?
That was not an audience member that was laughing during that entire presentation. That was John
It's been a long
Dehlin.
day.
Wait a minute.
It's been a long
Just
day
me?
in the Mormon
It was
stories.
just me.
It was all
I
four
was
of
the
us.
only person
It
laughing.
was all four of us.
What in the world?
Yeah.
But that was eerie.
Maybe just carry around a tape recorder and just record yourself and listen to it back and just see if there's something you might want to change your wording on.
Oh, that's funny.
But that was eerie though. I had not seen that clip. I had not seen that
I
clip.
hadn't either.
I had not seen. Clearly, none of us had seen it except for maybe Mindy.
Everybody's mad at me for laughing. I couldn't help it. Mindy, why'd you choose that clip? How dare I should have been warned.
I didn't know that it was going to have that reaction.
No, but
It's been a long
seriously,
day in the Mormon Stories podcast.
That's true. We're a little
Studio.
punchy
We're
over
a
Yeah,
here.
we're a little
Yeah.
bit punchy.
But he just said distortion and truth. He just adopted Jodi Hildebrandt's lingo.
Right,
That's
which I
what
thought
is
was
interesting.
fascinating. He kind of tied that in after she had been talking about it, and then he ties it into his own remarks.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should show the next clip based on how things are
I'll
going.
behave.
Let me
I'll
see
behave.
if I can bring us back down a little
Okay.
bit. I'm always good to be the downer, you know. I'm just thinking about what Jodi was saying and the way she was describing therapy and of course you saying like that she openly told her clients that they were responsible for their own depression. And I'm just thinking about my own therapy journey and where I was mentally and emotionally so fragile when I first reached out for therapeutic help. And I'm just imagining if my therapist had said to me that I was responsible for my own depression and that it was basically my fault that I was depressed and that I could just choose to just snap out of it immediately if I would just choose to be in truth. I think that would have just made me sicker for a long time.
Absolutely.
And it's just so harmful. I think any mental health professional out there would listen to that and say that's garbage.
Agreed. All right. Should we, John?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. The next clip is where Thom Harrison references his relationship with Neil A. Maxwell. So he brings him up again, and this is a common theme for Thom. I think he uses that relationship or that past relationship often to give him a little bit higher stance or more credibility. So he's on the same panel with or I believe it's a different panel, but he's with Jodi Hildebrandt, and he's talking about some advice that Neil A. Maxwell gave him.
We think that sex.
Oh no, wrong clip.
This is the wrong clip. Oh no, don't play it.
Oh, maybe I took out that other clip. Well, spoiler alert, the next clip is about sex.
Do you want to summarize what we would have heard?
He talked about just getting this, and it was just very solemn the way he spoke about how Neil A. Maxwell gave him advice about how in each of us we have our own universe, and then if we can understand our own universe, then we can connect more deeply with others in their universe. That was the gist of it. So it was more for the Neil A. Maxwell connection than anything for him to mention that. So
is this the clip? Or is this the clip?
Man
yes,
Okay.
they were switched. Yes.
Okay, we'll play
Thank
this.
you, John. Okay,
Sure.
let's go back.
and said, Thom,
Yep.
within us, we have our own universes. And first, we need to deal with this universe, understand it completely before we can understand the broader universe. May we understand our own universe. May we understand at a higher level these God-given bodies that are ours.
And I think that clip is interesting because he's obviously talking very seriously. The universe reference is talking about, I believe, about getting to know our own intimacy and our own sexuality, because this was given in the couples and intimacy panel. So he's referencing Neil A. Maxwell, and he's talking about the advice that was given to him, and how we can be better intimate partners if we can understand each other. And I'm remembering one of the reasons that I chose this clip is because in the very same panel, he makes this joke that we're going to see next, and it seemed just so bizarre and out of place, considering the clip that we just saw about the advice from Neil A. Maxwell. So you can do the next little
And that
clip,
was Jodi
John.
sitting next to him too.
That's Jodi. Yeah, Jodi's with him on this entire panel. She's
It's
sitting next to
fascinating
him.
too.
Yep. So now we can have the sex clip.
Okay.
We think that sex is only this 6-inch square on the human body. And I'm exaggerating with 6 inches, okay? No pun intended.
That's not a pun.
That wasn't a pun. That's
Not a pun. And it's just bizarre and inappropriate, in my opinion, to make a joke like that in that setting, while at the same time talking about advice that Neil A. Maxwell is giving them.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Big surprise.
Just trying to lighten up the audience,
I
I
didn't
guess.
Yeah.
make one snicker. There was not one
No
snicker.
That's
from
because
Snickers.
it's not really funny.
I
It's
know.
just it's just weird
It's
and wrong.
inappropriate. And I
Yeah.
think there was a delay, and then you see Jodi Hildebrandt kind of do this furrowed eyebrow, like, look, this uncomfortable
She's
laughter.
like, distortion.
Did he just? No, that's funny, Lauren. Did he just say what I thought he said? All right. Should we move on? Any other
Let's do
thoughts
it.
about Jodi? Okay. All right. Next up is Tim Ballard in Operation Underground
Actually, I will make
Railroad.
one
Okay.
comment. I am going to answer my own question. Why has the church used such unethical therapists as its referred therapists and as its trainers and spokespeople? It's because the field of science-based mental health has matured to be in contradiction to core Mormon doctrine. So, the mental health field would say that same-sex love, same-sex marriage, that same-sex attraction is natural, it's not a choice, it can't be fixed, and that the best outcomes for LGBTQ individuals is to find the love that fulfills them and engage in committed love. Every single therapist professional association is going to affirm that. So any ethical therapist that follows and has allegiance to their ethics is going to, by definition, be out of alignment with Mormon Church's core doctrine and theology. So chop off all those ethical therapists that the church can't refer people to if they want to refer their members to people that toe the party line. Same thing with masturbation. Pediatric Association, American Medical Association, American Psychiatric, Psychological, all the different associations are going to say that masturbation is healthy, normative behavior. And that's the first thing that got Natasha Helfer in trouble with LDS Social Services, with her local bishop and stake president, is she was saying, we need to stop pathologizing masturbation because it's healthy and normal, and to pathologize it is causing more harm than otherwise would happen. And of course, she gets yanked off the therapist recommendation list and has to build up her own clientele separately from that. So I'm going to answer my own questions. The church picks unethical, harmful therapists like Jodi, like Thom, because they're the only ones that will toe the party line against the ethics of their own professional associations.
Yeah, I want to mention as well, I did some of this research for my book, so I'm not a mental health professional, but I do know that there is no diagnosis of sex addiction in the DSM. It just isn't there. And most mental health professionals agree that addiction is not specific to sex. And so the entire church addiction recovery program then becomes problematic because it's really based on that premise. And so if it's not supported by mental health professionals, then they have to necessarily employ people who will continue to perpetuate the idea that you have a sex addiction if you masturbate. and that sexual addiction is a huge problem. And I think we saw that in the Adam Paul Steed interview and his comments about Jodi's therapy practices, is that she basically classifies everyone as an addict. And, regardless of whether it fits the diagnostic criteria for addiction, she just labels everyone as an addict. And then that guarantees that they have to be in therapy with her.
Yeah. And we also just can't put all the blame on Jodi Hildebrandt or Thom Harrison. The Mormon Church imported the Alcoholics Anonymous whole program into its faux mental health services, I don't know, around 2009, 2010, that's my memory, and started these addiction and recovery groups within Mormon wards and Mormon stakes. And it was not to treat alcoholism. It was not to treat meth. It was not to treat any, heroin, opiates. It was to treat sex addiction. And when it said sex addiction, of course, it was an occasional, pedophile in there or something of that nature. But the vast majority of people referred to these addiction recovery groups weren't people that were masturbating and looking at porn 7, 8, 9 hours a day. It would often be somebody that was masturbating and looking at porn for 20 minutes once every 3 to 4 weeks. And they were literally the ones being characterized as addicts. And this is not just Jodi Hildebrandt. It's system-wide for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to this day. So
Yep.
That's problematic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not good.
All right.
All right, moving on. We've got Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. And I think it's an interesting thing to note that we mentioned previously that we've been talking about doing this episode, talking about Visions of Glory and Thom Harrison for a while. And it's just, I wasn't aware of the close association that Thom Harrison had with Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad until just recently. So it was just so interesting that news has just come out in the last few weeks. And then we were already planning on talking about this. So of course we need to add this to the discussion. At some point, Thom left his private practice to become a chief consultant for Operation Underground Railroad. And in this next video clip, we have, and this a shout out to Cresha Easton. Cresha is the aunt of J.J. Vallow, and she has prepared some information about the connections between Thom Harrison and some of these groups, and she prepared this video clip where Tim Ballard is describing his feelings about Thom Harrison and how he can be helpful in Operation Underground Railroad.
And her YouTube channel is difficult to research.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. That's correct.
So I wanted to do my own research on it, and I found a brain specialist, one of the people that helps us heal the brain of the children who have been traumatized. His name's Thom Harrison.
That's a short clip, but it's interesting that Tim Ballard describes him as a brain specialist.
Can I just say that would be a neurologist, right? That's what a brain specialist is, not like a master's in social work kind of dude.
No.
Can I just say that?
Right.
Right.
And that he's
does he have a PhD or a master's in social work?
Masters.
Yeah. No. Anyway, sorry, Mindy.
just helping to heal the brain of the children who have been traumatized.
Get a neuropsychology degree in his spare time. It's just, okay.
It's not on LinkedIn. I don't
All
think
right.
so.
Go ahead and I'll.
Oh, no, go ahead with your thought.
Well, I think you're about to maybe talk about it, so I don't want to jump.
Oh, the next thing, just the next point is in these new documents that we've been able to view about the civil cases that have come against Tim Ballard. We referenced this previously, but we will review it. Tim claims that Thom had a vision that Tim would be a U.S. Senator, the President of the United States, and ultimately the prophet of the LDS Church to help usher in the second coming. Do you want to put up that quote again? This is from the victim. It's the previous one.
Previous quote?
There it is.
Okay.
Yep, sorry. This is from the Tim Ballard Lawsuit, excerpt from Victim Statement HDT. He also had told me to read this book. It was called The Visions of Glory, and that he had met with the man who wrote it. His name was Thom Harrison, and that Thom had told him lots of visions that he had that actually had Tim in them. He said that Tim would be a prophet of the LDS Church one day, that he would be president of the United States.
So Thom Harrison told Tim Ballard that he saw in a vision that Tim Ballard would be prophet of the LDS Church and president of the United States. Thom Harrison.
According to HDT, one of the female victims.
Yeah.
Correct. Did you have something to add there, Lauren, or are we going to go?
No, keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, and then the next slide is from...
Do we do the previous one?
The one that had the yellow and the pink
Yeah.
markings. Yeah, let's do that one.
Okay.
That's from the FOIA docs, right?
Yeah. John, do you want to read that one?
Yeah, sure.
Please?
This is Liberty 89, Elder Ballard. I don't know what that means.
Okay, so this person is named Kirsten. She is a former Kirsten Stockwell. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right.
You did pronounce it right.
Okay, she's a former Operation Underground Railroad employee. And this is from the Davis County case that came about previously, and I think was the cause for Tim Ballard to be ousted from Operation Underground Railroad earlier in this year. And she is giving testimony about some of her interactions with this entity called Liberty 89, and that's what this slide talks about.
It's from the Freedom of Information Act request that Vice News got, and all of the journalists in Utah were able to get. Yeah, it's from this.
All right. So here's what it says. Kirsten said Tim took her to a meeting in her official O.U.R. work capacity to meet with people at Thanksgiving Point. The people at the meeting included Thom Harrison, Ken Krogh, Hugh Vail, Tim Ballard. Kirsten said they claimed to have visions and special intelligence of the second coming. Kirsten said that because she had shared some spiritual things and Tim found out about it, Tim could share with her the more, quote, secret things that I'm, Tim, involved in. Kirsten said during this meeting, they spoke about Liberty 89, America being a fallen nation, and how it was Tim's calling to do these things with O.U.R. and restoring America to the covenant. Kirsten said restoring America to the covenant was, quote, a big mission of Tim's, and he was called of God to do this. Kirsten said Tim was very verbal about Elder M. Russell Ballard, his involvement in and behind it, but Kirsten said she didn't know if she believed that. Kirsten also said Tim would say that M. Russell Ballard is a part of Liberty 89. Tim would tell us that, but Hugh was there and Hugh is an employee, so it would be more employees than just Kirsten.
Right. So I just think that's just illustrating another connection between Tim Ballard, Thom Harrison, visionary talk, end of times talk. We're special.
Yeah.
Elder Ballard's in the mix there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the ketamine notes from last episode.
Yeah.
Do you want to set that up one more time?
Do we want to do that one again?
Yeah, and then I have a few other notes too that I can just read from my phone.
Yes, that's the last of this section.
I'll just summarize this ketamine thing. Basically, it's notes from, I guess, the ketamine guide. Scribe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just, I can put it up on this slide. People can pause it if they want. But he's basically mentioning...
this is Tim Ballard that had a ketamine session and had somebody scribe for him. So these are Tim Ballard's thoughts.
Yeah, and he basically is talking about Nephi and Thom Harrison and angels, and mentions Thom Harrison. I think that's enough. We can make that point.
That's enough.
Okay.
Yep, I think we've made that point.
Okay. And then there's one. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
What is that you just had
Lauren. Is that?
Oh, I think that Megan added this slide.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we don't have to. I mean,
go ahead, Lauren.
Good.
Go
Okay,
ahead,
so
Lauren.
I'll
do the
read
whole
this.
thing.
Yeah. So I just want to point out, so the civil lawsuits came down, and we don't have slides for these. So the two civil lawsuits that we've already discussed, and these are some of the quotes from the victims and from the attorney about what Tim says to these alleged victims. Ballard would claim to his female ruse partners that if his wife, Catherine, were to die, he would immediately marry them. Ballard told one of his victims that when his wife would question what Ballard was doing with these women, Ballard would tell his wife that his female partners kept falling in love with him and wanted to kill Catherine so that they could be together. I want to bring up that this is also a trend in Visions of Glory, in Chad Daybell, in many of the people who believe in multiple probations. They predict that their current wife is going to die, or someone's trying to kill their wife, or something's going to happen, and that they will marry a past wife, a past life wife. More from the civil lawsuit. He went as far as saying that the individual was obsessed with him and that she wanted to marry him, be his wife when he was the president of the United States, and that she physically wanted to hurt Catherine. He told me that she was trying to put cookies on his doorstep to poison Catherine. He painted her out to be this crazy person who became obsessed with him and wanted to hurt Catherine. And now here we go, some new pages. In quotes, never mention this to anyone. No one will ever understand. This is for the greater good and the new covenant. We had to be married in past lives, he would say.
This is Tim to one of the victims?
To one of the victims.
Okay.
So they were married now in a past life, hence, and it's for the greater good and the new covenant. And here's one more. Another interesting finding was stumbling upon some of AA's notes. So this is actually the husband of AA, victim AA.
They're the second civil lawsuit.
It's the second civil lawsuit, correct. Thank you. Another interesting finding was stumbling upon some of AA's notes. One in particular was extremely disturbing, especially when I read it without the benefit of context. The note was describing some sort of trance or spell Tim was under while under the influence of ketamine. He was talking to Nephi, Thom Harrison, and others. He was talking about past lives and how he and AA were together in a past life, held captive together. He was saying that AA was an angel and chosen by Catherine to carry out these missions. So not only are we talking about past lives, which is Daybell, we're talking about Catherine giving approval, which is, I think, in my opinion, spiritual polygamy, that Catherine's choosing these women. And that also goes with Lori Vallow-Daybell, suggesting that she's an eternal friend with Tammy Daybell, and pretty much telling these women that they were married in a past life. I mean, never mind that he's talking to Nephi and Thom Harrison and others, but then he's talking about past lives and how he and AA were together in a past life, held captive. Sound familiar? So I just want to point out those few moments. There are more in the civil lawsuit, but those are a few moments.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to refer people to Carolyn Pearson's excellent book, The Ghost of Eternal Polygamy. Modern Mormons want to believe that the polygamy is behind us, but it's not. It's still in Doctrine and Covenants, section 132. It's never been retracted. The top two Mormon leaders in the world right now, Russell M. Nelson and Dallin H. Oaks, both believe that they will be practicing polygamy in the afterlife. And these fundamentalist and neo-fundamentalist beliefs of spiritual wives and even real polygamous wives in the here and now. We interviewed last night the daughter of
Christopher Pratt.
Of Christopher Pratt. She said on the podcast that he believes in plural marriage right now. Yes. As the leader of Avow. That's what she reported.
He owns the Avow website, Another Voice of Warning, which the Southern Poverty Law Center declares as a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this polygamy thing is just still haunting us. So
it is.
Yeah.
It's there.
Really quick. Megan, you had included this statement from former O.U.R. employees. Did this have a connection to Thom Harrison or Visions of Glory?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I think it was alleged that, that Tim Ballard was using, supernatural resources rather than actual intelligence on his operations. But it didn't mention
psychic
Thom.
Janet, the psychic.
Right.
Okay.
It
channeling
didn't
Nephi.
mention Thom Harrison specifically.
Okay. But we all know that Tim Ballard paid a psychic, I think 6 figures, to try and help him gather quote intelligence about these operations or jumps that they would do. And the one that I saw, the one in Haiti where they're trying to find Gardy, is just a joke because it's a fool's errand. They don't find him, and they spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on a fake jump with great footage to not find the kid they went to see because the intelligence they were pursuing was from some housewife in Utah who was channeling Nephi through a psychic experience.
Yeah, and I think what we've read in some of these documents as well is that it was not just that one particular jump, but really the origin story of Operation Underground Railroad came to pass because this psychic told Tim Ballard, oh, I know where this missing child is. This missing child has been sold into slavery. He's being trafficked. And that's sort of how the whole O.U.R. movement got, started, was on the advice of a psychic.
Yeah.
There are actually two psychics mentioned in the documents. The one that I think we've been talking about the most is Janet Russin.
Yeah.
But there's also a psychic named Lori that's also mentioned. So,
Yes.
Okay. We are going to next talk about Maurice Harker. We hinted to him earlier. And I felt like this was important to share this story because this case happened kind of during maybe Hildebrandt and things were going on and it just didn't get a lot of press. But I think it's important and there is a connection. He also presented at Eternal Core, and the video clip that we are going to play is a portion of his presentation at the Eternal Core conference, the same one that all the others have been on that we spoke about. He speaks about how treating satanic temptation must be included in our therapeutic practices. So let's listen to a little bit of his speech, and then we'll talk about the charges that have been brought against him.
But what if we learned how to teach people to watch your chemical reactions and the high-speed satanic thoughts that enter your mind? It's only as hard as hitting a 90-mile-an-hour curveball in baseball, but it can be trained. Okay? I'll just get down to my final conclusions here. Self-mastery is not just a matter of willpower and choice. There is an intelligent, strategic, destruction-oriented entity significantly and subtly involved in both temptation and torment. This is not a new concept. Our spiritual leaders have reminded us of this throughout all of history, across most cultures and religions. They just didn't give us a scientific explanation for how it works. We now have that. Studying our science of psychology while ignoring psychological, biochemical, satanic attacks is like preparing our loved ones for a war that is only against ourselves. You're doing it to yourself. You're doing it to yourself, that I call psychological civil war. Or against organic elements like trees and weather conditions. It's just about your body. It's just about your body. No, it is not. We have a responsibility to understand and teach all factors that influence the psychological experience. Excluding spiritual influences on human psychology is like excluding the concepts of nature and nurture. It is irresponsible. If we do not learn to become aware of satanic intrusive thoughts and chemical reactions that cause cognitive if we do not become accurately trained to respond to such attacks with the necessary accuracy, speed, and strength, we are not fully equipped to acquire psychological self-mastery. We do know the solution. We do know how to train people to do this. It can be taught. You do not have to live in a state of fear. It can be taught. So in your notes, if you want more information, there's several links there to finish the conversation since we only had 30 minutes. Thank you.
And there's Maurice Harker.
Can I read the most recent article about Maurice Harker?
Please do.
Fox 13 now in Utah. This is September. This was September 19th, 2023. By Spencer Burt. Farmington, Utah, a therapist based in Davis County has been charged with abusing a vulnerable woman over the span of several years under the guise of providing her therapy. Maurice Wade Harker, 54, was charged Tuesday with aggravated abuse of a vulnerable adult and kidnapping, both second-degree felonies. According to the charging documents, Harker repeatedly abused a client of his between 2012 and 2021. The woman suffered serious injuries throughout this time and said she even thought she might die during one of the sessions. The woman said Harker used aggressive, hands-on, and even violent tactics, claiming that he had to do so because she was possessed by a demon.
And then there's a follow-up to that where he exposed the patient to pornography to help teach her about sex. And then he would lay on top of her and to comfort her after he had put her through these exorcism type exercises to rid her of this demon that was inside her. He created a dating profile for her. Somebody helped me understand how he can go to a conference and talk about that there's scientific proof that satanic forces and torment need to be taken seriously in mental health treatment.
And this was okay. This was accepted by Eternal Core.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awful. And I still want to just reiterate when Jodi Hildebrandt talked about doing billing for Jodi as a teenager, Jesse said that Jodi's number one client who paid bills was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm just coming back to this idea that the LDS Church has hand-selected these therapists to be the ones through the Lifestar Network, through other networks, to be the ones that these bishops refer their ward members to, and the bishops and the wards pay for this therapy. So the Mormon Church has been hand selecting and funding these types of therapists.
Harker was the subject of a report by Rolling Stone in October 2022 in which the former client came forward. The Rolling Stone's article states that Harker is fairly well known in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints community. In 2005, he founded Life Changing Services, a pornography addiction treatment group that appeared to be based on LDS principles. Although not directly sponsored or supported by the church, he did, however, work as a counselor with LDS Family Services for 7 years before founding his own program, according to his bio on the Sons of Helaman website.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lauren.
And here's the article, Salt Lake
Oh, yeah.
Tribune, former Utah therapist assaulted patient to rid her of demons. Charges allege.
What is going on?
Yeah.
That's wild.
And that's why we're all here today, tonight, so late.
All right. Do you want to talk for a few minutes about Firm? How are you feeling?
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's where we
great.
are in the
Yeah, that's where we are.
presentation. Mhm.
That's a great segue, actually. What is going on? So that is the question that led me to attend a Firm Expo last year of April 2022. Of course, we didn't know yet about Tim Ballard's alleged victims. We didn't know yet about Jodi Hildebrandt. I did not yet know about Eternal Core, and I did not know yet about Maurice Harker. But the Daybell case was enough for me. Investigating this Daybell case, at that time, it had been 3 years, interviewing many, many people with like-minded beliefs, those that had maybe left certain beliefs, ex-members, members of, friends of the Daybells, people that were mixed in these circles, interviewing a lot of them. And I was still confused. I was at the what is going on. I want to understand. I want to attend these conferences. Because what I knew is that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow attended these conferences. And when I say these conferences, let's go over what these conferences are again. They're the Preparing a People conference, now Latter-day Media conferences. They're the Firm Expo. The Firm Expo was actually and that's the Firm Foundation Expo by Rod Meldrum. That was the conference that Melanie Gibb and David Warwick were attending in Rexburg, Idaho. Those are Lori and Chad's very good friends. The last time anyone saw 7-year-old JJ Vallow alive in September 2019. So they were attending that conference and doing a podcast. Chad Daybell had a platform at these conferences along with the Avow website. And I'm trying to put together in my brain, what is this belief system exactly? I'm still confused. Like, I know that there's past lives, multiple probations, energy healing, a belief that the church leaders are possibly falling away or that wanting to bring it back, the church, to its roots. I was still grasping. Someone had sent me this, I know they taught about visions and dreams. And here's a textbook actually from one of the conferences. I just want to show you. The Dreams and Vision workbook right here, brought that today. First page is Overcoming Unbelief in Dreams and Visions, how to have dreams and visions, What experiences have I had in my life that support dreams and visions? What dreams have I had from God? It goes on and on.
So, Lauren, just for the people who may not be familiar with these conferences, they're not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at all, right?
Correct. They're not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're people that are LDS. I would call them extreme in their beliefs, neo-fundamentalists, as John Dehlin has dubbed it. And
I like how you describe them.
I say it's like this perfect trifecta of visionary, so the near-death experience, visionary preppers. They have that's sort of like this trifecta of beliefs. But I went. So I attended, there was one in the Salt Lake City area that I decided to attend. Here's the program from this. I attended 3 days, all 3 days. 2022 Firm Expo. I just want to point out, so on this side of the expo, on the program, the highlighted speakers on the cover of the program, that is Jason Mao. Jason Mao is a friend of Chad and Lori, specifically Lori Vallow, was a neighbor of Lori Vallow's. He was so close to both Chad Dehlin and Lori Vallow that there are police interviews that we have on our channel with him, and that he had to give DNA buccal swabs for the night Tammy Daybell was killed to eliminate him from all possibilities. He willingly offered his DNA samples. I'm not saying he was involved. I'm just saying he was that closely connected to these people that he had to do that and share what he knew. He had Lori on his podcast, Chad on his podcast. Right here is Tim Ballard. He is the highlighted speaker for the Firm Foundation Expo. I had been putting together all these connections, realizing that Tim Ballard is connected to all these groups. These teachings are extreme. I think that's the thing I want to point out too, that people that are speaking at these conferences, these are not, let's go talk about how the Spirit warms my heart and how we can overcome trials and know that God is there because he carries us through hard times. Let me just read you some of the things. We have, let's see, modern science versus true science. We have polygamy and Joseph Smith, top questions answered. We have the Porter Rockwell Project. Here you're here, John. John Dehlin's DNA Dodge. So you're a topic. That
sounds interesting.
That was the main hall. That means it was a big one. So at 11 o'clock, we have dinosaurs among people. Dinosaurs in the scriptures. In other words, dinosaurs weren't extinct. They died during the Noah's Ark time. Noah just forgot to put them on the ark. And then we have, there is a lot. And I met many people that knew Chad and Lori, Melanie Gibb, David Warwick. I had met people that had been to Lori's house. Someone had a giant freedom flag, the Title of Liberty flag that Moroni carries. And she was such a nice woman. And she shared with me, she opened it up and said she always has the speakers sign. And there was Tim Ballard, there was Chad Daybell, there was Julie Rowe, all of their signatures on this flag. And there was one gentleman, I purchased his book. He was also so kind, and he said, yes, this chapter, he told me which chapter, this is about Chad Daybell. But after Chad did what he did, I went and deleted his name. I edited his name for a new publication. I'm just trying to explain to people what this is. And I know you've had Rod Meldrum on your channel. You've interviewed Rod Meldrum. Rod Meldrum is the founder of the Firm Expo. So that's these. I wanted to know, what is it that all of these people have in common? I still felt like there was something. And I'll say, after 3 days there were no specific beliefs that they all believed in. Some people spoke against multiple mortal probations and past lives as it was evil. Other people were for it. Some people were for energy healing. Other people were against it because the church had written in the handbook that no more. Some people, some believed Joseph Smith practiced polygamy, and others didn't. Denied that Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. That was a good point. Some people believed that Joseph Smith used a peepstone and a hat to translate the Book of Mormon, as the church now claims.
others believe that the whole stone in the hat thing is made up by anti-Mormons to tear the church down. And then there's the whole 6,000-year earth. There's
Exactly.
the whole, the earth's core is not molten rock. It's ice. That's where the waters receded to when Noah's flood, just all sorts of stuff.
On and on and on. Yeah, exactly. So
lots of diversity.
Lots of diversity. So besides being LDS, you wouldn't really understand what is it that they all have in common. And the thing I walked away with understanding, the one thing they all had in common was an extreme political view. That was what these people all have in common, was this extremist political view. I'm not talking your average politics, extreme. And I know that Chad had that. I've heard things about Tim having a lot of these extreme beliefs. And I just feel like we cannot do this. We cannot do justice to this episode and to this topic if I can't bring that up, that there are some extremist political views, and that is what unites these like-minded Mormons. And I think, with that being said, and then visions, this belief in visions. Here I have Roger K. Young's books too. Roger K. Young started the website of Vow as a thief in the night.
Hold it this way towards you a little more.
Oh, thank you. What does it say on the front there? I can't read it now.
As a thief in the night, Roger K. Young.
A resource and reference book to assist in identifying kingdoms and events of the last years before the second coming of Jesus Christ. They're all prepping for the second coming, and they're following political events to do so. That Jason Mao began his speech with "Let's go." Brandon in the main hall, and everybody laughed and cheered, and then he said, "I can't hear you," and said it again, and everyone cheered again. That's just one example. But that I know that to some that's not extreme either. But I think a good way to do that is maybe just listen to Braxton explain this. Braxton might be able to explain.
That's a good idea.
What this is better, because so
we have those Braxton clips, John.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, Chad, also in the speech we have that he gave the day he met Lori at the Preparing a People conference in St. George that we have at Hidden True Crime, that he actually mentioned the presidential elections and shadow government of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and then that it was a miracle of God that Trump was elected. Of course, this was back in 2018 that he gave this speech. So
I've seen Obama there. I've seen Hillary Clinton there. They're not going away. Whether they get reelected or they just continue their parallel shadow government, I don't know. But they are part of the coalition, and that's really what they tried to do the previous 8 years before Trump was elected. And I do believe President Trump, it was a miracle that he became president. Otherwise, we would probably be headed right into these tribulations.
Okay.
And the next one, we'll just go straight into the next
one.
All right.
There, but he said that the new president will not take office. So basically, the non-white president. He's saying that because I don't think he was saying it's a black president. He was saying of not European descent, right? And we're all here in America of European descent. Right. Well, Barack Obama's not. From what everybody says, he's from Kenya, right? That's his, not that it was born there. I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying that is his heritage is Kenya, not European. And so Albert Smith said a non-white president leaving office, meaning a non-European. And the new president that will be elected will not be able to take office. So he'll go through an election, not take office, and because the country will be destroyed before he takes office. So that's what that was.
Okay. I Googled just now because I was like, I'm pretty sure he's English, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, German. Yes, he's African American. He has a wide ancestry, but he does have European heritage.
Yeah. Well, that's what they just that's what he says.
But it's how they're interpreting this.
Well, so they're thinking, whenever you see something what was that in the late 1800s? When
George Albert Smith.
bad, you want to know the future so bad, and you see a non-white president. So you're saying, oh, well, that's it. He doesn't have European descent. Well, he does, because his grandmother was white, and she's of European descent. So the next thing people are saying, not from any of these books, in the circles I hear, because everybody likes to predict, that Joe Biden will not finish this term. Kamala Harris will be president, and she is not of European descent.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's true. I've never looked it up because I've never cared to.
But these are the political beliefs going among the circles.
Well, just that they're just trying to interpret his
George Albert Smith's specific prophecy here.
Right. And saying that's what's going to happen. Biden, which who knows? Honestly, he can drop dead tomorrow, as old as he is. And then Kamala Harris.
We all could. Yeah.
And and then the next president will be elected but never take office. I don't know.
I mean, political extremist views, but also just kind of racist views. Like,
absolutely,
Barack Obama's mom was white. She's not a grandma. Like,
correct.
Yeah.
And he hasn't looked up Kamala Harris because he doesn't care to.
Doesn't care to. Yeah.
Doesn't care to know facts.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. If the person is of color. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just really important because a lot of this prepping and this belief in the second coming and this fear, it has to do with paranoia too. And I think it's really important to point out, because 2023 is quite the year for Mormon crime. And, 2020 to 2023, I guess you could say, with, if you add the Daybell case, and it makes me angry. And it's upsetting to see such extremists over and over and over again. The demons, just conspiracy theories, I'll say it. Conspiracy theories about what's happening and how this all is going to equate to the second coming, and preparing and having special intel. Tim Ballard too. I'll be messenger here, and I'll be the one that's saying it. And I can't help but wonder if a lot of this is also polarization that we're seeing. These extremist political, and again, they are extreme political views, neither right nor left. These are extreme. But I just think that we can't do this episode without bringing this issue up, because this is a group of like-minded LDS, visionary, NDE, neo-fundamentalist preppers, and there's an echo chamber going on, and they are getting stronger, not weaker. They are feeling empowered, and I just think it's really important. And they are reading visions of glory, and I am very concerned.
Yeah, and Chad mentioned in his speech the day that he met Lori that we just played that there's a shadow government going on. And regardless of who it is, we don't even need to say the names, but just the belief that there is a shadow government is, like you're saying, Lauren, is paranoid. And then his comment that if they, quote unquote, whoever they is, he intimated Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, but if they had been allowed to continue, we would already be in the end times. And so in a way, it's almost like they want political divisiveness to continue to happen, because like Braxton said, you've prepared for these end times. You don't want your money to go to waste. You want to use your white tent. You want to use your food storage, so you want
meaning
the end
and
times.
Purpose and identity,
Exactly. Right.
And,
Yeah,
I don't think we've adequately reiterated something that, Lauren, I think we all learned from you, that you can tell us the source. But just again, this idea that somebody said, if somebody just made Chad Daybell a bishop, at least one woman and 2 kids, and several ex-husbands may not have died. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And what that's getting at is there's a whole bunch of people that feel either disinterested, bored by, uninspired by, or disempowered within broader LDS church culture, and getting involved in these prepper communities, claiming to be to have experienced NDEs and joining these support groups like a vow. It's a way to have identity, purpose, meaning, friends, community,
Leadership.
Yeah.
A platform. Chad Daybell never was made bishop, but he sure was a head speaker at these conferences.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he had a voice on a vow.
Yeah.
That gave him purpose.
Yeah.
And I think, that's a really important thing to drive home. Someone very close to the case said, I think if Chad Daybell had just been made bishop, we wouldn't have seen any murders. It was almost like that was making him angry that he kept being ignored.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but wonder if that's, Thom Harrison too. He's visionary. He's apostolic. He has friends. And I just wonder, does he feel ignored? Or, luckily he was made bishop and he has been given higher callings, but does he feel like he should be an apostle? And then Tim Ballard wants to be an apostle and a prophet. Like there's something going on here. They all want to lead and feel worthy to do so. And it also brings me back to this interesting idea, John, that you also brought up, that there, the church is very concerned with progressive Mormons and excommunicating progressive Mormons and their thoughts, the thoughts they might have. Heaven forbid we want to have an LGBTQ bishop, or we want to see, gay people one day married in the temple. Can we get there? Can we keep progressing?
Or women in more leadership positions.
Yes, just simple things. And you get shut down for that. Progressives are the ones being excommunicated so often. Sam Young, for wanting children to be safe. And these extremists are meeting at conferences, and look at what is happening.
Look at the
over
fruits.
and over and over again. Look at the fruits. And I love it. That is a scripture I love. That is a scripture I embrace on my mission, and I still do. By their fruits you shall know them. That's just common sense. What do they produce? And like I said, I get it. The church is probably confused. These are the missionaries. These are the people that are dedicated and loyal.
Tithe payers.
100%.
But they're the one. We are seeing really frightening crimes over and over and over again, where people are being harmed. Children are being harmed. And that's why I'm here today. And that's, I had to keep thinking, why am I doing this episode or these two episodes? Why am I doing this? I always try to think of my why. What's the end game? And the end game is, I'm really, really upset that children are being harmed again and again and again. People, yes, people too. But, just innocent children, Jodi and the Daybells and who knows who else. And this innocent woman who has a demon in her, and the Maurice Harker attack. We've got to just lay this out on the table and say, there's something going on. What is the pattern? What is the trend? Let's get to a point here where we understand what's happening, and not just talking about, another crime on the calendar of 2023 by Mormons. Let's just figure it out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What's the common denominator? And is there some Wizard of Oz here? Is there some Wizard of Oz and this book is influencing people? I'm afraid it is.
And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, if they've shown us anything, they know how to denounce and shut things down. So, I'll say it again.
Unless it's vaccinations. They want to, unless it's trying to get people to be vaccinated, then they can't.
Yeah. No, but they can excommunicate people. They can make public statements. They can denounce things. At one point, they denounced Sunstone. Like, they can denounce things, and they denounce study groups. They can fix this problem.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have so many resources and so many smart people working for the corporation of the church. And they're meeting all the time to talk about these problems and to talk about, what's happening in the ex-Mormon community and what's happening with fringe groups and whatever. I just wonder, what conclusions are they coming to, and why are we not hearing some kind of something from them? I keep saying that the silence is deafening, coming from the corporation building over there.
If they don't announce it, it makes me wonder what some of the top apostles are believing.
Full stop.
Good point.
Like
That's
Emerson
a great
Ballard.
point.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are we
Lori
talking?
Maxwell.
Yeah, multiple mortal probations. Is that a thing now that we don't know about? Is that a little secret thing we don't know about? Is that what are they believing in?
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, Mindy, what an amazing part 2. Thank you for organizing this and making it possible. And
Thanks, John.
Yeah. And Lauren and Megan, thank you both so much for making the trip here and for bringing your wisdom and insight. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here.
And Megan.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Thanks do you want to do a quick shout out to Hidden True Crime?
Sure. If you insist. No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hidden True Crime, or to our podcast. If you're a podcast listener, Hidden a True Crime Podcast. We also have a Patreon account where we have Patreon only episodes, patreon.com/Hidden True Crime. And my husband is a forensic psychologist. And so we delve into the hidden motives into crime, the whys, looking deep into not just the basic motives of, sex, money, drugs. We let Dateline cover the basic motives, but we dig deep into the why. What creates a criminal? How does this happen? Which again is probably why, it's taken us 4 years to delve into Daybell and why I'm here today. But yeah, it means a lot if you would subscribe, and it means a lot, John, that you would have me on here and to do this dual streaming today. Thank you.
I loved it. And it's an honor to be with all 3 of you. Please also subscribe to Mormon Stories podcast channel. I want to just thank the donors that make all of this possible. Those of you who go to mormonstories.org, click on the donate button. It's those recurring monthly donations that's the bread and butter. We always appreciate the super chats on YouTube and on Facebook, however you do stars there, whatever. But our bread and butter is our donors, and thanks to our recurring monthly donors. Please become a monthly donor if you aren't one and you want to see this type of content continue. And then, please subscribe. You can find Mormon Stories on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And I think Hidden True Crime has channels there as well. And more to come in that regard. But we're also grateful for, Julia, who does time codes and show notes. Maven helps with the chats and the post-production. Gerardo, Clint, Carrie, Brooklyn. We've got a great staff at the Open Stories Foundation, and your donations make all that possible. In addition to our co-hosts, and I'm exhausted. Are you all exhausted? I'm like blah, 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 donate, blah, subscribe.
It's been a long day.
Welcome to Mormon. This is every day at Mormon Stories, basically, like 9 hours of programming from 10 to 10.
Wow.
Anyway.
Well, let's hope that some of what we said today will sink in somewhere so that the crime cycle slows down and John can take a nap.
Yes,
absolutely. Chill out, Mormon preppers. You're stressing me out. Maybe that's the plan. Kill John Dehlin
what a brilliant concept.
by too many news stories. Kill John Dehlin just through overexhaustion.
It's a grand design.
That's a conspiracy. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Be kind to each other, be good to each other. Systems should be our target more than people. Love to Thom Harrison's family, and even to him, and to Tim Ballard's family, and to just all the victims, Hildebrandts and Frankies. We cover this stuff because we feel like education can help prevent harm. But there are real people, the Vallows, the Daybells. Just love to all the people and the families involved, including the people we're mentioning. We don't want to harm anyone. We're not trying to target people. We're just trying to help educate people. So love to everyone. Hope everyone understands our motives. And anyway, take care, everyone. We love you. And we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast and Hidden True Crime. Take care, everybody.